How's it going, Laser Bruce's up, Bobby Sixkilla, and welcome back to Choices That Matter. And the sun went out. It is story time. Once again, story time. Now we're still in Peru, I believe. Okay, this is where we're up to. When Sharon's ready, move deeper into the temple. Sounds good to me. When Sharon remembered I was there, she was already becoming interested in her surroundings. Gemstone eyes looked down at us from enormous statues of long-ago gods. It's funny, she said. If I'd stumbled on this place myself, I'd have thought of him. He must have loved it here. It's amazing, I acknowledged. Someday I'd love to explore it thoroughly. I was hoping you'd say that, she said, biting her lip in anticipation. You want to keep going, I asked. I really do, she said. Don't you? I shrugged, trying to hide my curiosity and failing. We set off deeper into the mystery of Cusco's underground, climbing into a ravine and ending up again, rather than trusting a rickety rope bridge above. It was impossible to calculate the scale of the underground world. Soon the colossal spaces narrowed, and Moti assured me that we were drawing near to the temple. The shafts of sunlight from above ran out, and we rationed our torchlight, relying on our fingers and feet to find the way forward. It was raining somewhere outside, and a trickle of water flowed downwards, making our path treacherous. It also meant we had to continue heading upward rather than risking the possibility of floodwater in the caverns below. As the rain grew heavier, we discussed Ariel quietly, carefully skirting the fact that she'd killed or helped kill Sharon's friend. We agreed that she'd know how to take care of her people. Then Sharon tripped over something and fell hard, and we both turned on our torches at once to see what it was. It was a dead body. There was no peaceful sacrifice given his life among friends. This was a muddy, bloody mess of a man. Sharon turned away, swearing furiously. She was careful not to look back at the body again, instead facing the darkness we'd already walked through. Her torch was made, the ancient stone arches cast deeper shadows against the earthen walls. I have a bad feeling I know exactly who this is, I said. I might even know who killed her. Sharon gave me a long look and eventually nodded before turning away once more. The dead man had been arranged in a makeshift barrier, with his head and neck awkwardly angled against one wall and his legs propped up against the other. I shone my torch around the area, unable to tell where the mud ended and the blood began. Sighing in exasperation at my own reluctance, I reached for the man's wallet to confirm what I already knew. The man's ID showed he was indeed Dr. Manuel Jerez, the man I was meant to meet. There was no phone coverage inside the tunnel, so I asked Moti to let Dolores know what happened as soon as there was coverage, and to make sure the police were informed of his location just before we left Peru. Shouldn't we report his death to the police at once? I rubbed my face with my hands, wondering why my instincts told me otherwise. Sometimes first-hand evidence is best for a private investigator, I said at last. Sometimes our presence here is suspicious. We know we are innocent, but the police will want to detain us. If possible, we should avoid that. It would delay us and make us vulnerable to further attacks. Moti appeared satisfied. Sharon had overheard, and her pale face turned to me in the darkness. What do we do now? You should get out of here. I think I can learn more. Not bloody likely, she said. Besides, if I go back, I'll have to pass by the people that killed my friend, and I'm not real comfy with that either. That's fair. Who was this poor guy, she asked. A scientist of some sort. We were meant to meet. How are you holding up? I'm tougher than I look. Carry on doing your things. I'll be alright. She shone her pathetic little torch at the corpse with barely a tremor. The tremor made me trust her more than anything she'd done for me so far. She approached me at the airport, dropped me at the compromised location, and now led me to a murder scene, but she was no killer, and no liar. Kneeling down, I began to examine Dr. Manuel Jerez. The doctor had the soft hands I associated with academics, with calluses where he placed his pen. His fingernails were neatly trimmed, which was a shame. He might have scratched his killer otherwise, since the knuckles were scratched and bloodied from his attempts to fight back. Unlike Professor Sol, he'd been killed at close range. Unlike Clegouth Nyek, he had no intention of dying. I wonder if he'd spoken to his killer, and if so, what they'd talked about. His shoes had been bought so recently they still carried a glossy shine. He hadn't expected to be hiking underground. I wondered if, like me, he'd been invited to the Great Hall of the Temple by the golden-eyed man. There was little else to see. I winced at the wedding band on his finger. He had a tiny cut on his cheek that he'd given himself shaving that morning, not realizing how much more of his blood would be spilled in the hours ahead. Depressing. It was also desperately pointless. Looking back, it surprised me that I'd never planted evidence before. In a perfect world, that drop of blood also belonged to the murderer. I'd hope I'd done the right thing. You know who killed him? Sharon breathed. I have a pretty good idea, I said in a low voice. This isn't the first time someone gathered research on my behalf has been murdered. Now let's go with Sharon to check on her daughter. Let's get out of here, I said. I've learned all I can, unless you want to keep going. Even Sharon shook her head at that, and the three of us made our slow, stooped way out of the light into the light of the temple, leaving quickly in case the golden-eyed man was still around. We cleaned the mud from our shoes as well as we could on the grass before catching a bus back to Sharon's taxi, since taxis were far too expensive according to Sharon. She switched the meter on as soon as I stepped inside. She saw me eyeing the meter and grinned, back to her normal self now that the dead bodies were out of sight. I asked Moti to call the number on the card given to me by Petrus, the lively scientist I'd met at the New Eastern Hotel. The phone was answered by a woman who spoke no English, unless I counted the phrase "no English," which I did not. Once again, I had to leave diplomatic communications to my watch. I listened as her tone of voice changed from apologetic to affectionate, then concerned, then businesslike. Then she and Moti exchanged the kind of farewells reserved for close friends, and Moti ended the call. My device might have just saved a man's life. That was good, but I'd seen sci-fi movies. I couldn't tell if I'd crossed some kind of line between man and computer with Moti. I was pretty sure I couldn't go back now. Honestly, I don't know what to do. That was what scared me most of all. By the time the phone call was done, we were entering the driveway of Sharon's house. Oh look, she said, Chrissy's here. A few moments later, we both saw a second car and spoke in unison. Who's that? Park them in, park further away and call the landline? Yeah, let's do that one. I'm gonna tell her to get out of there, but in code or something, Sharon announced as she had a quick dial on her phone. Good idea. Also, keep the engine running. I'm gonna peek inside the house. If there's trouble, I'll try to keep the golden-eyed man occupied while she comes out to you. Got it? Yeah, that makes sense. She cast a single longing look at the house as she waited with the phone pressed against her ear. We nodded at each other before I left the car and silently approached the house. I tried the door handle, but it was locked. Suddenly I heard a woman scream inside the house. I didn't have time to go back and ask Sharon for the key. I picked up a terracotta pot and smashed the window, reaching in for the lock and opening the door. If the window hadn't announced my presence, the creak of the door certainly would have. Run, I yelled, just hoping Chrissy would be able to hear me and know that she had a chance. Just get out. I'm ever so sorry, said the golden-eyed man. He faced me from the other end of the hall, holding his tied-up victim with a single hand despite his struggles. I'd seen plenty of golden-eyed people around Cusco, but none of the others had Professor Sol's gun. Tears of grief and helpless fury burned behind my eyes. Chrissy fell against the wall, howling through a gag and drooling with helpless rage. I saw the question in her eyes, and I knew, and she knew her mother was close by. My terracotta pot was smashed, but I had a sharp piece still in my hand. She doesn't know anything about anyone. What is she to you? He smiled and shook her like a naughty puppy. Knocking her head against the wall, she reeled drunkenly, trying to get her balance despite having her ankles tied together. It's all about the look on your face, he said delightedly. Have you noticed that everyone you so much as talked to gets killed or beaten up or kidnapped? No one's been kidnapped, I said, wanting to only to argue. Like you said, what use is she? He smiled, making sure I have a clear view as he used Professor Sol's gun to lift her chin. She stood on the side of one foot and toes on the other, trembling with the effort to keep her balance. She's the perfect innocent, don't you think? Suddenly I noticed the familiar weight of Mr. Dalt's gun in my pocket. Praying desperately that his incompetent ambition meant that he hadn't reported its loss, I drew it and aimed for the golden-eyed man's chest. Yes and no, I said. She may be innocent, but I'm not. I simply don't care enough not to shoot both of you to get this job done and stop you following me. You wouldn't. I shrugged, enjoying the feel of the gun in my hand without the moral weight that usually went with it. Let's find out, I said. I'm going to count to 3 and then I'm going to shoot you. I gave him my extra happy smile. Either you drop the extra baggage and make a break for it, or you're going to get a new hole in your torso. I'm not an especially good shot, but right now, I don't care. It's been a long night. I found the present you left for me at the temple. He didn't say a word, frowning in concentration as he tried to figure out if I was bluffing. 1, I said. 2. He threw Sharon's daughter at me, and I let her fall, knowing I needed to keep in character until the audience was out of sight. I leapt over her and followed him, running so fast I almost caught up to him before reminding myself that only one of us had real bullets. He jumped into his car and drove over Sharon's flower bed before screeching away. Sharon flew from her car and past me into her house. By the time I made it back inside, the two women were on the floor of the hallway, hugging and crying. I sat down with them, dropping my toy gun on the floor and laughing until I was crying too. Please don't point that thing at me, said Chrissy. I only laughed harder until I was unable to explain and had simply pointed in the opposite direction so she stopped yelling at me. Finally, her hysterics calmed to sniffing and blowing noses. Everyone okay? I asked. The others said that they were, although it was clearly only true in a strictly physical sense. Sharon went to get some tea. Teacher, what do we do now? We go back to the temple. We were all mentally and physically exhausted from our ordeal, so I gratefully accepted the offer to stay on Sharon's couch while Chrissy and her husband took over the spare room. With Moti on guard, I was able to calm down and drift towards sleep. I heard Moti's soft noise and cracked my eyes open. Teacher, are you gonna die? Everyone dies eventually. I'll do my best to live a long, long time. Am I gonna die? You can't die. You're mechanical, so you might one day cease to function, but I can back your memory up and replace your parts. Can your parts also be replaced if you're damaged? Yeah, kinda. Some of them, yeah, some of them. I'll do my best not to get permanently damaged. Thank you, teacher. Was Miss Sharon's historian friend murdered? I sighed, remembering the useless grief of Clegouth Nick's friends. Not exactly. He went to his death willingly, hoping to save others. His hypothesis was flawed. I'm afraid so, but I still respect his sacrifice, and I pity those who helped him. I think I understand now. You should go to sleep. I chuckled quietly. You're absolutely right, Moti. I'll do that. In the morning, once everyone had drunk either coffee or cocoa tea, I had to bring up the truth that no one was willing to say. You're not safe in Cusco anymore, none of you are. Chrissy and her husband exchanged a glance. We know, she said. So we figured we'd take my Motorcon savings and spend them on that Australian holiday we've always meant to have. Sharon's face brightened at once. You're a genius, Possum. Chrissy shrugged modestly and turned to me. This both was and wasn't your fault. I forgive you for accidentally putting us all in danger, and if I know Mum at all, she's probably half grateful. Personally, I'm just glad you were here when it mattered. I nodded, unable to speak. We're gonna go home. To pack and book the first available flight to Australia, said Chrissy. We'll keep in touch. I could tell it was an effort for Sharon not to run out into the street after her daughter, but she managed to act calm. You'll disappear, won't you? I said. From creepy men with golden eyes, she said. Yes. From you? No. We have each other's numbers, and I for one intend to keep in contact with you. Before I could answer her, my phone rang. I answered and was surprised to hear Etienne's voice. Hi, he said in a breathless whisper. Surprise? I'm in Cusco, at your hotel. Technically, I'm in your room. Specifically, I'm hiding in your room, in the bathroom, because someone's trying to shoot me. I'm on my way. Sharon grinned at me. Someone else in trouble then? This one's not my fault, I said. I beg you could use a ride. Yes, I could, I said. Someone's trying to shoot him. Can't have that, she said cheerfully, grabbing her keys and leading the way out the door. Oh, I love Sharon. Sharon powered down the streets as if we were in a street race. I clung to the seat and wondered if Etienne or I would get killed first. What's he like? Sharon asked, deliberately fishtailing in order to shave half a second off a turn. This friend of yours. I tried desperately to focus on the chit-chat rather than death-defying driving. Etienne's a park ranger. We screeched into an empty spot in the deserted parking lot. The hotel was encircled by police, and only a few guests were stubbornly refusing to evacuate. I could clearly see that the window of the balcony next to my room was shattered. How do we get in? Sharon asked. Help me climb up their balcony. I got onto the balcony with some difficulty. Please don't kill me. I crouched instinctively as two gunshots rang out, one after the other, and not from the same gun. I heard glass smashing from the next balcony, and the distant smash of the room's inner window also breaking. Etienne was definitely alive and fighting, for now. I heard two male voices swearing in two different languages, neither one English. Shall I translate for you, teacher? Thanks, but no thanks, Moti. I got the gist. There are very few French natives living in Peru. This fight is dangerous, but very linguistically interesting. Use the broken window to get in. I climbed inside the room with difficulty, seeing Etienne and one of the golden-eyed crew grappling one another, each reaching for the other man's gun. Drop it, I yelled. Etienne dropped his weapon and I grabbed it before the other man had a chance. With both hands free and his weapon safely out of reach, Etienne quickly gained the upper hand, and soon had the other man lifted bodily from the ground, ready to hurl at the wall a third time. He glanced at me and grunted. Hi. The other man's gun went off, lodging a bullet in the ceiling, but both Etienne and I jumped on him as he fell to the ground, and he was helpless. Surprise, said Etienne, moving to put his knee more firmly in the other man's back. Sorry about the extra passenger. Glad I could help, I said. It's good to see you. He asked me to pass him the cords from the curtain, which I did gladly, so we could tie up our prisoner. I imagine we should get going. How's things in Cusco? Not good. Eventful, I said. I made a friend and almost got her daughter kidnapped. He winced. We should question your man. I confess I attempted to question him myself with little success, said Etienne. You may have better luck without me, particularly since I intend to keep my gun with me and someone's bound to object. Shall we separate and meet outside? I hired a truck. Sounds good, I said. I'll pay for everything so no one bothers you. You should get changed and then just walk out. Something less bloodstained, he said. If you can manage it. I smiled and waited for Etienne to leave the room. Hello, I said to him. Do you like being alive? I do. That gives us something in common, don't you think? He spat at me, hitting the arm of my shirt. Arrogant fool. You think the mystery of the universe is small enough for your mind to contain? How dare you? Do you think I'm a scientist, I asked. I'm not. And nor is my park ranger friend. More importantly, the young woman Chrissy doesn't know anything, especially profound about the universe. You, or even me. Why did your people attempt to kidnap her? Kidnap, he said, shocked into ordinary speech for a moment. No one said anything about kidnapping. If something truly happened to this person, it is Victor's will alone that brought it into being. Victor who? I said. Your boss? Victor Santiago isn't my boss, he said, regaining his defiant air. If Victor took her, he'd have a good reason, a holy reason. Victor sees the truth. I had a name for the man who killed Professor Sol and Dr. Hurius. That would have to be enough. It was time to go. Moti, please report to Dolores that Etienne Sol is here, and that Victor Santiago is the man who killed Professor Sol and Dr. Hurius. Shall I mention the damage to the hotel? You better. The company will need to call up and pay for it because Etienne and I need to leave another way. Okay, teacher. Sending message now. Thank you, Moti. Please search the police database for me and see if they have anything on Victor. Searching now. Teacher, Victor Santiago once had his license suspended due to speeding. Is that all there is? Yes, teacher. I'm sorry, teacher. You're doing great, Moti. What was his last known address? 6214 Pardo Street. Well done, Moti. Let's meet this Victor. We were on our way to Victor's house in Etienne's hired truck. It was strange to be beside the park warden in the middle of Peru. As if sensing me looking, he handed me a small parcel. Curious, I opened it. A wooden cog dropped out, falling neatly into my palm. It was very similar to the cog I'd seen at Clagerth's house. I hesitated, but wanted to know. Did you really come to Peru just for me? I came to Peru because I felt it was important to give my father's things directly into your hands, said Etienne. I still need to know why Victor Santiago targeted him, so my next stop is Japan. Why Japan, I asked. There's a secret base for scientists there, and there's this cult of scientists who call themselves Etherites. I suddenly remembered I'd never told Etienne about the Etherites I'd met in the tunnels in Flying Falls. I wondered if they were still hiding. I think my dad was one of them, Etienne continued, not noticing my reaction. Everyone knows scientists are getting killed all around the world, so maybe the rest of the Etherites have gone there too. I thought of Professor Sol and swallowed hard. They're expecting me, Etienne continued. If you want to find people to unlock that thing, and maybe figure out what he was really working on, then the Aetherites are a good place to start. Of course, my father didn't leave anything important in his research notes. That would be far too straightforward. Victor Santiago's last known address was an apartment block, not far from the city centre. It had a wide balcony, but otherwise the only entrance or exit was through the stairwell. I get the feeling you're not a fan of the local law enforcement, said Etienne. I shrugged in acknowledgement. Alright, he said. I'll go to the door, and you stay here and keep an eye on that balcony. If he escapes, let him go. Information's our objective here, and I don't want you getting killed. Okay, I said. Not at all sure if this was okay. Etienne went inside without another word, and I fixed my eyes on the balcony. Teacher? Yes, Moti, I said. What is it? I don't want you to get hurt. Neither do I, Moti, I said. I'll do my very best to stay safe. Your heartbeat is beating very quickly. I'm concerned that you might be overstimulated. I'm scared, Moti. It's okay to be scared. I saw the curtains move, and then a man appeared on Santiago's balcony. For a moment my anger was so intense I wanted to climb down so I could confront him. It was Etienne. Come up, he called to us. The apartment's empty. It was clear at once that we had the right place. There were discarded newspaper clippings on local scientists in the bin, and more clippings on the wall. I heard Moti scan them all and send messages to each one, warning them that the murderous Victor Santiago had shown interest in them. Etienne found several passports in a drawer, all of them in Victor Santiago's name, but featuring a variety of nationalities. Peru's missing, he said. I suppose he's using the real one, or he keeps it somewhere else. He's left Peru, I said in shock. He must be travelling under his own name, given the passports. Moti, can you log into the flight records at the airport? Can you find Victor? I'll do my best, teacher. Searching. Mr. Victor Santiago is in the airport records, teacher. He just cancelled a ticket, but can buy another at any moment. Etienne sighed. We were so close. He turned to me then. I don't think he's coming back here. Why not? There's no emergency cash anywhere in here, the park warden reasoned. He has a stack of passports but no cash, and his Peruvian passport is missing. He's going somewhere. I nodded, agreeing with Etienne. What will you do now? I'm going to head out to Japan now, to chase down that lead I told you about. You coming along? To Japan? Absolutely. It was time to get out of Peru. I called Dolores for a debrief, telling her everything I'd learned. Was there any comment? Although I heard her typing furiously. I chose not to get into the old argument about how to work more profitably. Money wouldn't count for much if the sun went out for good. Presumably, you noticed the news about the satellite fragments washing ashore in Indonesia, she said. Knowledge is power, even more than solar. Your next assignment is to follow that satellite. Dolores, I have other leads. I can't wait, Dolores said briskly. Weren't you listening? I was listening, I said, but things are more complicated than that. Go on, said Dolores, her voice so low it was almost a growl. I have a solid lead on Professor Sol's breakthrough, I said. I have his diary, which is all I need, and Etienne is meeting the Aetherites in a hidden base in Tokyo. They can interpret his notes. Presumably also without getting themselves killed, she said. That's the idea, I said, struggling to keep calm. Alright, she said. If you really think Sol's notes are so important, you can follow up in Japan with your new BFF. I ended the call feeling like I'd been in a fistfight with a gorilla. The image of Dolores as a gorilla made me smile. Come on, Etienne, let's go to Japan. Professor Sol's murder wasn't getting resolved by itself. He deserved better. Now I knew that his son was going to Japan, I had to do the same. I strengthened my resolve. Indonesia would have to wait. I was going to Japan. Arc 4 completed. Wonder what happens if you go to Indonesia instead. You and 36% of players are going with Etienne to Japan from Peru. Nice. Begin Arc 5. I lost track of day and night and the days of the week as my direct flight turned into an endless round of airport terminals, uncomfortable chairs and dinners with lids. My journey was constantly interrupted by heavy fog, storms and even a volcanic eruption. By the time Etienne and I finally arrived at Tokyo, we knew a large number of our fellow passengers by their first names, and by the names of the people waiting for them on the other side. Along the way, we'd met a 15-year-old Japanese teenager called Akio. He'd just been in Hong Kong pursuing his career as a pop star. He'd missed a lot of classes, but remained confident of passing thanks to his eidetic memory. When everyone on board was too tired to feel shy, Akio entertained us with surprisingly melodic performances of Lady Gaga, Sam Smith, and The Weeknd. After that, he took requests, and he knew every word to every song requested from Queen to Kanye. We farewelled Akio with half-delirious promise to keep in touch. By the time we traversed the gauntlets of customs, the clouds we'd flown above had darkened and then burst, pouring rain and exploding with thunder and lightning. Etienne made a face. It doesn't smell like it'll clear up anytime soon. We push through to Maneki-Neko Street, or stay here and wait it out. Let's just go. Screw the rain, who cares? By the time we found the building that matched Etienne's address, we were drenched. 5 Maneki-Neko Street was a celebration of 1970s brutalist architecture. It managed to look just like every other high-rise in a row, yet with an extra layer of hideousness the others lacked. The row of buildings made a wind tunnel, and Etienne and I hurried into the foyer. The foyer extended high above our heads, with windows over the entrance, yet it somehow managed to feel like a concrete cave, but it was better than staying outside. And we'd finally arrived. We approached a woman sitting behind the oversized front desk. She gave us a plastic smile that stayed fixed as we introduced ourselves and asked her where to go. Have you flown here to join that astronomer conference, taking advantage of the record-sized harvest moon? She asked conversationally. That's us. What a shame, she said, adding an eyelash flutter to the plastic smile. The moon was last night. Goodbye. Show her Soul's diary. I'm sure that's a very nice book, she said doubtfully, or at least it would be if there were a safe way to open it without damaging the contents. I don't know if anyone called Professor Soul, of course. Please stop deflecting us, said Etienne. It's been a long journey and we're tired of this nonsense. She dropped her smile. This is a business, not a hotel. Please leave before I call security to stop you bothering me. I have work to do. After 2 days? Or was it 4? In and out of airports. Her dismissal was almost more than I could take. Etienne drew me away and we went to find a hotel and regroup. We glanced back to see the receptionist painting her nails. It was still raining. There was a cafe across the road, but no obvious accommodation, so we hailed a taxi. A boom of thunder made me jump. Did you see that? Etienne gasped. See what? I asked. Lightning just struck number 5. Good, I said wearily. I wish it had burned down. Etienne shook his head. The lightning should have struck the top of the building. It didn't. It hit a spot at least 3 stories higher than the roof we can see. How's that? The top floors of number 5 are invisible, Etienne explained. They're hidden somehow, but they're there. It looks ordinary, but it's the tallest building here. Good to know. We definitely have the right building, I said. Even if they're not letting us in yet. Let's sleep on it. Agreed, said Etienne with a yawn. The taxi dropped us at a hotel only a few minutes away, and we made our way inside. It occurred to me that we were exhausted, hungry, and had already announced our presence in Japan to at least one person. We're vulnerable at the moment, I said. As far as I know, we're in no danger, but let's keep our phones on. I have a better idea, said Etienne. Let's room together so we're close, in case either one of us is attacked. You want to share a bedroom? I asked, surprised. No, I want to share a suite with 2 bedrooms, he clarified. He gave me a cheeky look I hadn't seen before. Why? Do you happen to sleep in the nude? Because I'm fine with that. Share a suite. What? Neighbouring rooms. Share... Neighbouring rooms is fine. We settled into our neighbouring suites, and I put Moti on guard before sleeping. I woke up to sunlight streaming in through the window. It turned out I'd never closed the curtains. How long was I asleep? Good morning, teacher. You slept for 11 hours and 45 minutes. Whoa. Is it really morning? Here, I mean? Yes, teacher. The temperature outside is 43 degrees Fahrenheit with a 7% chance of additional rain. Judging by what I can hear, Mr. Etienne is awake and it has showered. I recommend you do the same, before your personal hygiene becomes noticeably below par. Thank you, Moti. I sniffed my shirt and gagged. I'll do that. I showered and raided the minibar, not willing to leave the cocoon of the room without some kind of sustenance. 2 packs of overpriced peanuts later, I was ready to face the world. I checked my phone first. Dolores had texted me a picture of the Peruvian national Victor Santiago, saying his travels aligned with the murders of both Professor Soul and my intended contact back in Peru. Golden eyes stared out of the photo at me. It was curious that, other than his eyes, he looked completely normal. The worst human so rarely looked evil on the outside. But there was good news. He hadn't followed me to Japan. He could have done us the service of having a Hitler moustache or something just to let us know that he was evil, you know? I knocked on Etienne's door. It swung open moments later. Hungry, he asked? My stomach rumbled loudly in response and I blushed. We discussed strategy over breakfast. Etienne apologized for the unexpected barrier to our entry, but it had only made me more curious about what was happening inside number 5. I saw a cafe across the road, Etienne said. Should we case the joint? Or try and get inside through the back entrance? Let's go to the cafe. Etienne and I settled into the cafe, resisting the urge to order sake at that hour of the morning. We watched the street, seeing people come in and out of every building except number 5. Why is Shihari Kanjiya working at number 5? Who is Shihari Kanjiya? She's a well-known Japanese actress. She's also in the window on the second floor, third from the left. I looked out at the window Moti had indicated, and saw a normal-looking woman filing papers. Most of the windows had their blinds closed, but a few other workers were visible here and there. Are you sure, Moti? Yes, teacher. I stared at the actress. I saw the moment when the video of a woman filing papers skipped back to the beginning. Huh, I said, that's a fake window, with an actress pretending to be a secretary. Etienne turned to see for himself. That's odd. A waiter was giving us annoyed looks, so we ordered sushi for an early lunch. I hadn't thought I was hungry, but the fish was so perfectly fresh I found myself ordering a second helping, although I was more cautious with the wasabi the second time around. We don't even know if the Aetherites are still in there, said Etienne. For all we know, the building has long since been taken over, and everything sheltering scientists removed or killed. I'm afraid you're just making me more curious than ever, I said. He smiled. So what now? Our waiter appeared again, hovering at Etienne's elbow to refill our teacups, and then remain with us, teapot in hand. I smiled wryly at Etienne and sipped at my tea. It was stronger than before, and I made a face. Etienne followed my lead and drank, giving the waiter an innocent look. The waiter smirked and remained staring at us like hawk at its prey. Has he spiked our drink? Then Etienne turned awfully blurry. Then everything else. I knew it. He spiked our drink, and then darkness crept in, drawing a curtain over the entire scene. I tried to warn Etienne about the tea, but my mouth wouldn't move. Instead, I slid off my chair. I heard the thump of Etienne's body hitting the floor beside me as I lost consciousness altogether. I woke up with a splitting headache, aching limbs, and a sour taste still lingering in my mouth. The room around me looked like an ordinary conference room. I could see the dents in the beige carpet where the table and chairs had been removed. It was mirrored on all sides, presumably with one-way glass. There were no real windows or natural light. Alright, we're going to wrap this one up here because we're out of time for today, but we're in Japan now. Geez, we get around, don't we? We must have a lot of money. Because we just buy stuff and get around and it's fine. Must be nice. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for hanging out with me and I'll see you in the next one.